So, ladies and gentlemen, not to tell you anything that you don't already know, but man, last week was horrible, wasn't it? Dear God, what a horrible, awful, maddening, exhausting week. It just seemed like the bad news would never stop. Just from the attack on Monday to the explosion in Waco, to the end of the week shootout in Watertown, to Boston being shut down. And in a few minutes, we're actually going to get to all of that, to all of the marathon updates that happen. And there's a lot of news to get to, but I want to talk about something else first that's related here. So I can tell you, folks, being here in Boston, Massachusetts, it's been pretty rough. I'm not going to lie. People are tense. People are, were rightfully on edge after everything that went down. And I want to talk about how being on edge is exhausting. It is emotionally exhausting. It's physically exhausting. Hell, I'm exhausted from it still, and just talking about it's making me even more exhausted. I mean, I'm just kidding, but it's draining. It's draining to just be in this madness here. And so, what I want to talk about here at the top is after the second alleged bomber was caught on Friday night. After that happened, my wife Kate, or the Kate as many of you know her, we decided that frankly, we needed a goddamn break. We needed a break, and so on Saturday, we actually took a day trip up to Portland, Maine, which if you're not familiar with the area, something that's so great about Boston is the fact that there is so much that's literally an hour or 2 hours away from where you are. I mean, Portland, Maine's a couple hours, New Hampshire's less than an hour, Rhode Island's an hour, the ocean, there's mountains. New England is awesome like that. And so we went up to Portland, Maine, and we went to this little this seafood shack that's on the ocean, and we had like lobster rolls and just walked along the ocean as these waves crashed up over these rocks. It was just amazing. Then we went to Shipyard Brewery and we did a beer tasting. And I got to tell you, this gets better. The story gets better here, folks. So we went and did this beer tasting at Shipyard, and the beer was quite good, thank you very much. But then for dinner, because that's what we were doing, we decided to actually go to another microbrewery at a pub. We went to this place called Gritty McDuff's. And I don't want to brag here, folks, but listen to this here, folks. So here's the deal. We sampled 12 different beers at Shipyard Brewery. Then at dinner at this pub, Gritty's, we actually ordered a flight of all the different beers that they made. And so they brought out 7 beers. And don't get me wrong, these aren't full pints, these aren't bottles, these are small sample glasses here, people. So, we weren't didn't have any blood alcohol poisoning or anything like that. But so here's the deal. So we're eating dinner and we're drinking, and I say to my wife, I say, Kate, we had 12 different beers over at Shipyard, and right now we have 7 different beers. So if you count the 3 different beers that we had at our dinner last night, Kate, we have actually had 22 different beers in the last 24 hours. Now, again, not full beers. These were sample sizes here. But I was like, man, look, we had dinner and our first drink at like 8 p.m. the night before, right? So at that time when we're having our dinner that night, it was like 7:40 at night. And so I figured we actually had 20 minutes to taste 2 more different beers, and if we did, we would make it a full 24 beers in 24 hours. Right? And that seems like a worthwhile thing to do. And my wife supported me in this plan. Kate was like, well, should we just pay and go to another bar and get a couple more beers at another bar? And then, just then, the waitress comes up and I asked the waitress, by chance, are there any beers here that weren't included in the sample flight? And she says, yes, Yes, there's actually a cask conditioned beer and a rye IPA. So bam, lo and behold, we ordered 2 samples of those beer, and with 8 minutes to spare, dear listeners, my wife and I had sampled 24 beers in 24 hours. I know, right? I know. And I'm not saying this as some kind of drunken braggart, although I admit I am pretty proud of this accomplishment. I'm not gonna lie, folks. I am proud of this. The reason I'm bringing this up is, my point I'm trying to make here is that, dear God, we really, really needed that break. We needed to get away. We needed it. We needed to get away from the horrific week that happened here in Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm bringing it up to take a minute to try to remind everyone that you need to take care of yourselves. You need to take care of yourselves by drinking 24 beers in 24 hours. No, not really. You get what I'm saying, though, right? Look, my wife and I, we're lucky. We're lucky we have a car. We live in Boston. Portland is a short drive away, so we could just zip away for a day and decompress. And if you're someone who's lucky enough to be in that position to get away, then by all means do it. But if you're not, just this is just advice. This is just advice I'm giving. Find something else, go to a movie, go for a hike, go to the park, shut off the television, shut off the internet. Take care of yourselves, especially all the listeners here in Boston, Massachusetts. But hell, everyone else. This affects, when something like this happens, it affects everyone. It affects us all. After the last week we had, take care of yourselves. It's important to remember, to take care of yourself all the time, but it's especially important in times of great stress and turmoil, which that is what this last week certainly was. So let's talk a little bit about some of the stress and turmoil, shall we? Let's get to some of the news and the updates. And I'm going to be honest, it's hard to discuss this stuff because, frankly, here's the deal. We still, so many details we still don't actually know. And if you watched any of the coverage on Fox or CNN or on the internet, you know that the media was consistently getting really, really important facts wrong. Hell, the bloody New York Post printed on the cover of their newspaper a picture of 2 innocent kids and said they were persons of interest when they weren't. And so again, talking about this now is sort of complicated because, again, not all of the details are clear, and some of the details that come out actually end up not being true. But here's some things that we do seem to know. On Thursday night, one of the 2 alleged bombers was killed in a shootout, where explosives were reportedly tossed, or he was maybe shot dead, or maybe his brother ran him over, or both. There's conflicting reports, but either way, one of the brothers of the 2 bombers is killed Thursday night. After that moment that what went down at this massive shootout that happened in Watertown, the city of Boston was essentially shut down on Friday as police and the FBI searched for the second bomber in Watertown, which, was kind of eerie. I'm not going to lie. Public transit was shut down. The T's and the buses weren't running. Legally speaking here, the city wasn't in a, quote, state of emergency, like a lockdown, right? It was something that was called shelter in place, which was actually the language that they told Boston residents to do. They said shelter in place. The legal distinction that we found out later on means that if people went outside, they weren't going to be arrested for breaking curfew or whatever. And the thing is here, we're not going to talk about this much more now. We're actually going to talk about this more on a later show because, again, right now the details of this are not really clear of what actually entirely went down in some of this stuff. But so eventually, after several hours of intense searching in Watertown, the shelter-in-place order is lifted. After that, the T's start running again, public transit, people are out on the streets again. After that, that is when the second bomber is discovered bleeding, hiding in the back of a boat parked in a yard just outside of the perimeter in Watertown where all the different law enforcement people were searching. So after the standoff, thankfully, the second bomber is taken alive. I'm someone who, like, the fact that he's alive, we actually might be able to find out the motivation. You actually can find out, were there more bombers? Right now, with all the reports, it appears that they were the only two. It was really just these two brothers that did this. But, if the person is taken alive, you actually can find out information and then actually have a trial and actually, use our system of justice that we have. So the second bomber is taken alive. He's arrested. He's taken to a hospital. What's really hard about this whole thing is that this story has so many different angles. You know what I mean? It is a really complicated, complex story, and all of these aspects are very, very important. We have the crime itself. We have the crazy, irresponsible media coverage. We have the Islamophobia that is happening. We have Lindsey Graham and John McCain and a bunch of right-wingers wanting the second subject to be tried as an enemy combatant, even though he's an American citizen who carried out the crime on American soil. A lot of right-wingers want them to try him as an enemy combatant because why the hell not? Because they don't believe in our system of justice. They don't actually believe in America, essentially. I'm sorry. That is my opinion. It's like, if you have so little faith in our actual justice system that you want this person tried outside of it because you think our system is so bad and so incapable of possibly delivering justice to to a person that the evidence appears to be fairly overwhelming that this person is guilty. Again, this is alleged. We don't know all the information, but in the affidavit, they claim to have video of the subjects literally dropping these bags before they explode. We'll probably eventually see that, but that is what is in the sworn affidavit that when the second bomber was charged. So it's okay. You have all these crazy right-wingers, wanting to try the second subject under, to name it an enemy combatant, I guess send him to Guantanamo. I don't know what they want to do. And, I'm not someone who really, it takes a lot for me to give Obama credit. Thankfully, the Obama administration has said that they are not going to try him as an enemy combatant. And I think credit should be given where it's due. And so while there was apparently a delay in reading the alleged bomber's Miranda rights, which is messed up, and we're going to have to find out more about that. They did eventually read him his Miranda rights, and they formally charged him on Monday afternoon. Now, what's odd about this is they actually charged him with the use of a weapon of mass destruction, which is not really what we think of when that term is used. I mean, we think of nukes, we think of chemical bombs, not like homemade bombs that are made out of pressure cookers. Again, it's like, under that logic, probably Saddam Hussein did have WMDs, because I'm sure there were IEDs in Iraq, but they're charging him because technically under some type of law they can charge this pressure cooker as a weapon of mass destruction. We'll see how that goes. But here's the deal. Again, this gets back to the point I was making earlier, is that this story is so huge and there's so many elements that are just horrific and traumatic. And again, that just you try to wrap your head around all the different pieces, and it's exhausting. And you worry. I worry about the fact then I know that there's already been reports of some jackasses here in the Boston area who have been harassing brown people because these two alleged white bombers were Muslim, and so therefore we have to harass brown people, even though they were Russians essentially. They were born in Russia, and then they were Chechen, and then they might not even be Chechen. It's so friggin' complicated. So. And then you worry about what possibly drove these two kids. I mean, the one was 19, one was 26. What drove these kids to do what they did? What drove them to commit this horrible evil that they committed? And we don't have answers to this stuff. And since we don't have these answers, we scour the internet, we scour Twitter, we scour the news networks looking for that bit of news, that shred of an answer, that shred of an insight into why. And it's exhausting. The whole process is horribly exhausting. And you worry because you know that after past attacks, after traumatic events like this, bad people have used that fear and that trauma as a time to take advantage. They've used the shock doctrine to do horrible things when people's heads are just spinning, like so many of our heads are spinning right now. And so yeah, last week was a really, really, really bad week. And even now, I'll be honest with you, talking about it, I can even feel myself going back into that haze, that numbness of trying to understand the horror and trying to grasp the evil, trying to understand it. It just wears you down. Which brings me back to what I was talking about, and the main point I want to make. Considering we still don't know, there's so much about this that we still don't know. What I hopefully want to leave you with this today, folks, is that you need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of yourself, and you need to take care of your loved ones. So I'm going to tell you something. After this show is over, I am going to go and I am going to watch Mad Men with my wife. Sometime soon, I suggest that you take some time and do something similar. We'll be right back.